Tell him, say Marvin.
So they,
Turn your mic on and say Marvin.
African history or European history? African psychology or European psychology? African cultural norms, African creative norms or European creative norms? To give you an example.
There you go. I see you. Yeah.
Oh, there you are. That's Brother Bruce.
All right.
Man,
who was up in the right-hand corner? Milwaukee, somebody. Milwaukee. That's Brother Kimberline, okay.
Kimberline, yeah, man. I was trying to hold forth till you got here.
I see another
I see
guy.
Brother Marvin there, too. Is that the brother Spencer?
Hey, Bruce, how are you? Long time no see.
All right, who was that talking? Donald?
Marvin.
Oh, yeah, how you doing, Mike? You know me?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm ready to start whenever we get ready, brother.
Who is that?
Yeah.
Why you keep flicking from person to person?
And then posted with the time and everything.
Can you
We'll talk next week probably.
It's 4 people on.
All right, I'm going to start recording now.
How many people we got here now, you know?
Looking like it's
Who is that,
24.
Mr. Brown?
Was that all? Okay,
It's 24,
George
plus
Brown.
we got people in
Brother
sports as well.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I was wondering for the whole total. That's what I'm
Who is
saying.
that? Yeah, more than that.
That is all she got.
Okay.
At least 35 from what I count.
All right, keep me on the time, though.
Okay, I got you. All right, we're going to turn it over to Dr. Bruce Bridges. Thank you so much for joining us. Brother George, I would like for you to introduce Dr. Bridges, if you don't mind, and we'll get started.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? Can you hear
I can
me?
hear you and I can see you, too.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to put things in this context that amongst our people, the most important
I
thing
say yes, ma'am.
that we have going with us is resources. And today,
No, tell him
I
stop
want to
calling my phone.
introduce one of my resources.
Tell him stop calling my phone.
One of my great friends is
Thank you. And you working from home.
Dr. Bruce Bridges. Now, I want to introduce him in the exact same way that I did in the past, and a way that he made a point of he really liked being introduced. Now, I gave his introduction as Dr. Bruce Bridges. But when I originally met Bruce, he told me, he said, why do our people always got to feel like that you have to have a doctor title or something in front of your name to justify that you have the intelligence to be speaking and spreading powerful information to our people? He said, why aren't you introducing us as like, this is just a good brother in the hood that wants to do well for our people? Well, that's the way that I'm going to introduce Bruce to you today. He's a good brother from the hood that's got a wealth of information. And I give you Dr. Bruce Bridges.
All right. Okay, thank you, brother. I see you hear some hand claps. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you very much for the introduction, George, and also thank you very much for the invitation.
Hey, Big Brown.
And, more importantly, I wanted to be able to do this because when you told me who the group is, that you're really doing it for a group of people in a housing development in Richmond, Virginia called Wickham, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Wickham
Yes, sir.
community. Right. So I want to be sure to speak to them and to let some of our heavy brothers and sisters who are on to, this morning to know that I'm just going to do a very general lecture on African American history, and I'm going to take my time. We're going to do it rather casually, and I'm not going to get too deep into anything because we have some people who might not be as deep as a lot of you. So I'll have to come back and do something again, maybe if we want to do something a little different. But I just want to do a general thing today, and I'm so glad that so many of the people that I invited did get on. I see some names I know. I see Jamaica Holloway. I see Dr. Lafayette Maxwell. And those are some people that I do know there. I don't see my good friend Dr. William Rogers on. I don't know if I see the whole screen or not. But anyway, I want to thank all of them for coming on this morning and being a part of the program. Now, American history, of course. But before we can talk about African American history, we have to give credit to the brother who is responsible for us even being on this Zoom call, or for us even having television coverage for Black History Month, for us being having lectures and workshops and seminars and diversity and inclusion. All these words are very new in the American society, but they would not have even been a part of the vocabulary of America had it not been for a brother from the west of most of you who are here from Richmond, Virginia, in West Virginia, Dr. Carter G. Woodson. And I have to give credit to Dr. Woodson because he did so much for the perpetuation and the development and the extension of African American history. Now, first of all, to give you a little background, I read something many years ago by Marcus Garvey. And Marcus Garvey did a little book called Message to the People. And in this book called Message to the People, he discussed some of the things that we as people should do for our growth and our development. One thing he said, first of all, he said read. And then he said read incessantly, mean read a lot. Then he said not only should we read, but we should read certain kinds of things. He said not cheap sentimental type novels or not books with no encouragement or nothing that deals with your development mentally. He said one thing he did say read was read biographies. He said because the human life cannot experience everything, but you can experience things through the lives of other people. So he said read biographies and autobiographies. And I mention this because before I ever do anything in terms of Black history, I always take it back to Dr. Carter G. Woodson. And I like to do a little biographical sketch on Dr. Woodson. First of all, as I said before, he was born to the west of y'all in Virginia because, you know, at one time, Virginia and West Virginia was one state, but it was divided in the same way that North Carolina and South Carolina was one state, but it was divided. But Dr. Carter G. Woodson, born in 1875, died in 1950, born son of coal miners, and would oftentimes read coal miners when they were on their breaks in the coal mines of West Virginia, read Black newspapers to them. He could read, but they weren't able to read. So I'd like to just say that Dr. Woodson read to the brothers who were working in the coal mines, and when he read in the coal mines, to the brothers in the coal mines, he went to the Chicago Defender, he read the Baltimore Afro-American newspaper, he read the Courier, he read African-American newspapers from around the country to let them know what was going on with the Black people. And in so doing, Dr. Carter G. Woodson eventually went on to Berea College. Eventually, he received his master's degree from the University of Chicago, and eventually he became the second African American to receive a PhD from Harvard University, second only to Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. And when Dr. Woodson received that degree and began to study and learn, he said, now here it is, I've studied the history of Greece, I've studied the history of Rome, I've studied the history of Spain, Portugal, France, and Germany, and of course England, and all the nations of Europe. But he said, out of all my studies, I have learned nothing at all about my own history. And I want those of you all who are listening, in Wickham, and those who are my invites who are listening, when you go back and you think about it, you will think that in our upbringing and our training, it's the same exact thing. We learn all about other people and we do nothing about ourselves. So Dr. Woodson, in 1940, founded an organization called the Study of Afro-American Life and History. And when he founded that organization, he set out to establish what was called at that time Negro History Day. which was established in 1926. There was only one day. 7 days. Oh, I love it.
Oh.
I hear somebody talking. And out of 7 days of the week that we could talk about our history, one day. And here we're talking about, brothers and sisters, the oldest people on the planet, the longest people on the planet, the Alpha and the Omega, the Ancient of Days, as it says in the scriptures, the originators of civilization. You're going to discuss that history in one day. It's absurd. It's absurd. It's appalling for that to even happen. So what Dr. Woodson did is he kept fighting, and eventually he was able to establish Negro History Week, because you have to realize that we were Negroes at the same time that we were coons and buffoons, at the same time that we were watermelons.